before I became a book dealer, I worked for a private as an investigator who was my girlfriend at the time's brother. And so I had to clean out this guy's house, this recently deceased guy. And he is a pretty interesting guy. He was a black guy from Memphis who was gay and a pacifist during World War II. And he was ostracized from his family, and he went to conscientious objector camp in Waldport, Oregon. And it turns out that later on, once I got to know poetry and so forth a little better, Camp Waldport played into my book dealing.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rare Book Cafe. I actually kind of feel like I'm on Sesame Street after the producer, Alan, gave us the countdown here. I count 1, 2, 3, let's go.
What'd you have in your
Hey.
coffee this morning?
I got my coffee. You noticed that, Lee, my co-host from Ridge Books, Calhoun, Georgia. Hey, Lee.
Good morning, Ed. It's good to see everybody this morning. We seem to be joined by our frequent co-host, Richard Mori of Mori Rare Books.
Hello, everyone.
Nashua, New Hampshire.
That's right. And Richard, then we'll pass it on to you and let you tell us who we have with us this morning.
Oh, well, this is exciting, actually.
Isn't it exciting?
Well, it is, because Joe Maynard is known for not being able to be found in any one location at any specific time. But we're real pleased to have Joe Maynard with us. He's been an exhibitor at our show in the past. We're looking forward to him being there this year. I've known Joe for, I don't know how many years, Joe. We've a long time.
Over 20.
Yeah, we've seen each other. I knew him when he was in New York. I knew him when he went out to Tennessee. Now he's back again. And so we're real pleased to have you here. And Ed, I guess you're going to do the honors of asking a few questions. And,
Well, I think we're all going to dogpile on him.
Okay, let's go.
But yeah, I just want to point, you are a bit of a Renaissance man. You're not just a book dealer, you're a songwriter. I mean, you got a lot going on. You're the lead sex symbol of Maynard and the Musties.
Oh, please.
He loves it. He loves it, really.
But do you collect music? With your interest in music, is music a part of your personal collections, your personal stuff?
It's a small part. Yeah, I like to collect posters. I like sort of 70s singer-songwriter stuff, kind of when Willie went to Austin. So I have a few posters from the Armadillo Club back then, where Willie used to curate the talent there and where he talked Waylon Jennings into singing for a bunch of hippies. And, a few things like that.
Well, I noticed on your listings on ABE that you had a good bit of sheet music, and a fair amount of it was country. And
Yeah.
I recall from shows that we've been at together that we had sold you some music related things.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you sold me like a Sacred Heart book and a few other things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in
You've had a
Nashville.
relationship with Joe as well.
Well, yeah.
Tennessee book fair, yeah.
I mean, professional relationship.
I always found it confusing. He had so many addresses. He would show up as a Tennessee resident sometimes, and he would show up as a New York resident sometimes.
Right.
You knew where you were going to find Joe.
Well, I'm from Nashville. Then my dad needed assistance, so I moved back to Nashville for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm back up in Newburgh. Although I'm considering going back to Nashville for the music now. But yeah, so music stuff probably comes from growing up in Nashville. My interest in all that.
Good. So what are you going to be bringing to Richard's show? You got anything sitting there in front of you can share with us, or can you tell us
Yeah,
about some of the
yeah.
highlights?
I thought like yesterday we talked a little bit like before I became a book dealer. I worked for a private investigator who was my girlfriend at the time's brother. And so I had to clean out this guy's house, this recently deceased guy. And he is a pretty interesting guy. He was a black guy from Memphis who was gay and a pacifist during World War II. And he was ostracized from his family, and he went to conscientious objector camp in Waldport, Oregon. And it turns out that later on, once I got to know poetry and so forth a little better, Camp Waldport played into my book dealing. I got the collection of a guy named, oh my God, I just had a brain fart. But anyway, he was friends with a lot of the San Francisco Renaissance poets. And a lot of those guys were pacifists during World War II and sent to Camp Waldport. And they had a press there. And they started publishing things. I think it was called Untied Press or something like that. Not Undied. Oh, the Tide was the camp newspaper. So they wanted to be the alternative. So they were Untied. But a lot of the people that came out of there were like Kenneth Rexroth and what's his name, Brother Antonio, the writer poet,
Yeah.
and a bunch of other people, Robert Duncan. Anyway, they all started they were known as the San Francisco Renaissance poets, and who's this guy is Michael McClure was one of the 5 poets at a place in, I don't know, it was around 1950, 55 or something. It was a gallery exhibit, and as is now, they often have poetry readings there. And it was the first time anyone used the word beat poet. And so Michael McClure was one of the 5 people there. And Jess was a visual artist. He studied under Robert Duncan, and I think they may have been lovers. I forget. But anyway, this is a fun little book I got. When he was with Michael McClure, they used to sit around at night as they had dinner, and they would just sketch things. This is from Orion Press. That it's a San Francisco-based fine press. And what they did, they made a kind of an elaborate fan-fold photo reproduction book of one of the sketchbooks that Michael McClure and Jess did at their kitchen table around dinner time. And,
Wow.
So anyway, this is, I mean, it's not a very interesting story in terms of provenance. I got it at an auction just because I like the press, but that's one
Interesting
thing.
story in its creation.
Yeah, it's history and creation. Yeah, I'm all over that. And I think, besides this little subgroup in San Francisco, I myself.
Excuse me a second. That was a very interesting story about Waldport. Coming from Oregon, I have been to Waldport, and a lovely little seaside town. There were several Japanese Japanese Nisei internment camps not far from there.
Right.
But I had never heard the anecdote about the CO camp before.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit more aware of that because I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and that religion, they're all conscientious objectors. So either they were medics during the war, or they went to a camp where they performed, they called it special duty. But what it was, in fact, was starvation experiments, exhaustion experiments. They would not allow people to go to sleep for days by buzzers and so forth. And it was quite hard work, but it's to see how much the troops could take in a wartime situation. And I don't know. That's what they did. That's what we.
Was anybody in your family?
No, my family. Well, my grandpa on my mom's side was the only person that was a Seventh-day Adventist before the war. Everyone else converted after the war. So my dad was Korean War, and I'm not sure if he was. I think he was converted by then. So he worked in a hospital. It wasn't a very exciting job. It was the end of the war, so I think he got to Korea pretty much about the time it ended. So he didn't really see
Mhm.
combat or anything. But all he talks about is giving young Korean girls English lessons, which I guess stuck in his head. But yeah, so Camp Waldport. Um,
Great stuff. Things you learn on this show.
yeah, well, it's out there. Um, but I also wanted to talk about, that guy's collection and the whole story of Camp Waldport was made aware of just digging through a dead person's possessions. That's pretty much what we do in our trade is you get a person's collection and you end up getting to know. My job for this private investigator was to piece together his life for his sister who didn't know him.
Hmm.
And pretty much when you go into somebody's library, you do the same thing. It's interesting because you can tell when they were exposed to this book or that book. Or one interesting thing is early on, I got the collection of uh, Mary Crapo Hyde, who was heiress to General Motors, who went to Radcliffe in the 20s, and I got a lot of her stuff. And then at this, like 2 weeks later, I got the collection of a school teacher from Brooklyn, from like a modest, working class Jewish background, Brooklyn, that also went to Radcliffe 27 to 30. So it was interesting seeing like what similarities they had and what differences they had. And actually, the Brooklyn woman, her collection was a little headier, and she studied Middle English and so forth, which had books with all special symbols and so forth in it. And Mary Hyde's collection was more historically oriented. She was um, into the circle of the Johnsonians and so forth. So that's where her collection lie. And I think she had some like Shakespeare folios and stuff that all went to Christie's. But
I love that quote, Lee. I think that quote is going to be my next article for the magazine. Combing through a dead man's papers.
That is a good one. And boy, is that true.
yeah,
It is
yeah,
true. I'd be interested to know about the two Radcliffe women,
uh-huh.
what they went on to do. Did the
Well,
heiress,
one became a school teacher.
okay,
Oh, and her lifelong lover was a black man
wow,
that she never married.
wow. And so what about the heiress? Did she marry into money and
Oh, she married Lord Eccles.
uh
Yes, he was an English lord. Well, first she married a guy that was in the Grolier Club and so forth. He was, I don't know, I'm not going to say anything else, but it was probably, a marriage of convenience, I'm guessing. And then after he passed, uh, she had all this money and this, I don't know. I shouldn't even say anything because it's like gossip. So
yeah,
um, I hang out with Stephen Massey too much. And he knows all the gossip. But anyway, yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then as being a half Italian, whose great grandfather got kicked out of the mob back in the.
Well, which half? The top half or the bottom half?
That's a good one. But anyway, the housekeeper for this the school teacher in Brooklyn, she was an Italian woman from nearby Italian neighborhood, and she went on about how scared she was coming to Flatbush or wherever this Jewish neighborhood was because she didn't know what the crime was like because the mob wasn't there. So who was going to protect her from?
the Jewish grandmothers were going to protect her.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway,
So,
what else?
Richards, how's the show shaping up?
Very well. We've just actually yesterday confirmed the showcases for everybody. We are basically over the number we were at last year. We've got a little bit more space left, so we're pleased, and everything else has fell into place very easily this year.
Well, I certainly hope to be back next year.
Well, there'll
I'm
be
going
a space
to miss
for you.
it. I'm going to miss it.
No, you will be missed.
So, Joe, how are you seeing business out there? I don't think you have an open shop. You mostly sell online. Is that correct?
Yeah, I sell online and in my shops. I have like a price point, so under $30 gets sent to the antique mall or the flea market, which I don't do anymore. I should replace it with something, but and then kind of over $50 goes online or to the fairs or whatever. I don't have a lot of huge books.
Nice business plan.
Yeah, I mean, things get bumped up pretty quickly, so I try not to take more expensive things to the flea market. Because also, you're not even dealing with book people; it's just sort of anybody who walks in. I like to think of myself as proselytizing for book collecting. I tell people as much as I know about whatever, whether they want to hear it or not. And if I sell a lot of those $5 pulps, and in some cases I can tell them who the illustrators of covers were and their backgrounds, and I try to get them to think of the book as something more than just something to read. It has a history. The world was this way when it was published, and now it's this way. Whether or not that book had anything to do with it, you know what I mean.
Sure.
We do. We all do that.
We're not just curators of books, we're curators of history.
Yeah, right. And a lot of people don't think about it, especially the younger kids. They just come, they're just like, whatever. Their big thing is being on the volleyball team or a cheerleader or something like that, And there's a whole world out there. Want to get them to know it,
Yeah. I had an email from a friend in Atlanta yesterday who was a retired. Well, he used to do a genealogy column for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but he had met a 19-year-old collector recently and was so excited about that. And, we don't have a fair in Georgia at the moment. Don't see.
Oh, I loved your fair.
I know, we did too. But he was looking for ways to get this young man involved in book collecting. So we're sending him a subscription to the Book Lovers Paradise magazine. But it's encouraging. It's encouraging, and and those of us with grandchildren, I think, need to be aware of helping them grow a collection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a volleyball playing granddaughter, but she has a nice collection. She's developing a nice collection as well. So
people can have more than one hobby.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I think Honey and Wax has a young collectors competition.
Right, they do.
Yeah, and then of course Basie Gitlin. I don't know if you know him or not, but I remember him coming to Paper Mania since he's like 12 years old or something. He was already building up collections, and now he's like, I don't know, what is he, 30? He's probably 30 now. And a book collector. When I had my Bridgeport thing, he bought things from me all the time.
Good. We need to encourage that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since we're not getting any younger.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, before we run off, I want to hear about Maynard and the Musties. What kind of music do you guys play?
Well, I used to write fiction. Then I started working at Christie's, and I couldn't finish anything. And then I'm from Nashville, so I always play guitar. And then I just turned to songwriting more. So it's somewhere in the area, it's singer-songwriter stuff that's sort of country influenced. Some people call Americana or just folk music, whatever you want to call it.
Has your music been on vinyl?
No, it hasn't. It's on. I have some CDs, and it's Maynard and the Musties is on Bandcamp and Spotify, and I don't know, whatever, however people get their music nowadays.
Just like the same way people get their podcasts.
I guess so. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, YouTube. Yes, it's on YouTube. Yeah.
And that's where you can find us, folks. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I don't think we're on Spotify, but wherever good podcasts are given away for free. Joe, we're going to have you back on the show. You're an interesting guy.
Oh, shucks. Thank you.
And Alan wants to go play something for us.
Oh, do you want me to play that song about the Gotham bookmark?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so
Are you?
this song was inspired. I had a call to look at some books in Brooklyn, and the people just reminded me of like the sort of ilk of people I knew when I was in my 20s. And it's called The Hotel President. But at the time, my friend Gina, who's now my roommate, was the manager at Gotham Bookmart. And my girlfriend at the time, Lori, her stepmother was, how do you say, a consort living in the Hotel President there on 53rd or something, which I think the Weinsteins owned at some point. And so I would hang out at the Hotel President a lot, not for Lori, not her mom, just.
Thank you for clarifying.
So anyway, my pick is somewhere else. I don't know where it went, but we'll just do it with my hands. Can you hear this?
I think this is the first, Lee.
This.
Down at the Gotham Bookmark, that was where we agree. All us cultured vultures without any of the elite, working on cheap tickets for the Metropolitan Opera, or a porno down on 42nd Street. A 2-day job as an extra might pay the rent. We were never quite homeless, just flunkies of descent. In bed watching public access TV, once all our money was spent. In a state of mind we know so well, called the Hotel President. We painted, we wrote, we sang shy brilliant, working our way through the land. Hungover when we should have been sober and cashing in on something. Lying in bed with each other, that was where our skill set went. Living the dreams of the young and naive in the Hotel President. We're all so old now, old enough to be ghosts of the city. The way we imagine those ghosts when we were young. We aren't quite dead yet, but then again we aren't quite pretty. Avoiding assisted living, living off of widowed friends. 2-day job as an extra, well, it might not pay the rent. Still we'll probably avoid being homeless once Social Security kicks in bed watching Instagram reels of cats now that all our savings are spent. Too old to be living the dreams of the young and naive at the Hotel President.
Hey.
Sorry, I messed up a few times. Oh well.
Well,
There's some nice lines in there. I like
words.
Ghosts of the City.
Yes. There were ghosts when it
Tony
happened.
Mitchell's going to be calling you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm waiting.
All right, Joe Maynard, thank you for joining us. You can find him on ABE Books. And Richard, good luck with the show. We will see you next week.
That's right.
We're going to see you all there.
See you all there.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
That's y'all, Richard. Y'all.
Take care, y'all.